On The Rocks.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Come by.
All right. So we're just going to be hanging out, talking.
Excellent.
You know, no problem. Yeah? So it's been like...
Excellent.
You like it?
Excellent.
Good. So after that, you're going to try this one. Yamazaki. This is the number one
Do you guys have a
single.
place for me to sleep?
Yeah, right there.
I've done worse.
So it's been like
7?
8 years,
No,
8 months?
like 9. Well, we did it in June.
It was hot.
So it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
It's been almost a
So
year.
what did you play?
I played the defense secretary,
Okay.
also known as the Secretary of Defense,
On for the
On,
people that
on Paradise.
no, Paradise.
episode 7.
So that was a good show, right?
Yeah.
That was.
Folks seem
well,
to like
that
it.
is.
Folks seem to like it.
Yeah.
My
It's-
pettiness prevents me from giving it far too much credit because
Why?
my face wasn't shown as much as I wanted in our episode.
No, but
Did you
had,
not encounter any of this?
You got lots of. Oh, did you see me on it?
Yeah, because I know you.
It's just like blink and you just missed me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I had like 8 lines, blink and you miss me.
Well, you had 8 lines. I only had 1. I had 2, and then just like they cut me.
In terms of screen time per line, though, I think you won.
Oh, I think so. no, so yeah, that was like July.
Yeah, it started in June and it
Right.
ran through the first week of July. It was like a
And-
3-week job
Right.
for one
right.
episode.
So when I saw you, you told me that you were in New York, right? And you were just coming
I
out
still live
here?
in New York. Yeah,
You do?
Yeah, I had come out here for that job, and then after that job came another job that shot in Vancouver for a show called Untamed.
Oh. What was that
has-
about?
It's this kind of mystery thriller with Eric Bana playing a park ranger and Sam Neill plays a park superintendent, and I play a park superintendent. And that started shooting in August. No, that started shooting in July.
Oh, right afterwards.
Right
Right?
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could probably talk about that on set a little bit. So I ended up staying out here until September, basically,
Okay.
and then went back to New York.
And did you work out there?
No, since moving back to New York in 2021, I haven't had a job in New York. I've
Oh,
had
really?
like 10 jobs here.
So you were here before that?
So the entire history is I moved to New York in 1993 out of college. I worked for a year out of college, moved to New York in 93.
Okay.
Stayed in New York for 12 years. Moved to LA in 2005. Was in LA from 2005 to 2015. Moved back to New York in 2015. In 2018, I had this kind of come to Jesus, what am I doing? Why am I doing it moment.
Oh, good. Okay.
And decided, so when I moved back to New York, I should go back a little bit. In 2015 and 2016.
Wait. Let's
Yeah.
go back even further. Okay.
I
know
was born a poor
you're
black
born in
child in
Japanese,
Japan.
right? I mean, you're half Japanese,
I was
right?
born in. I'm not half Japanese. No part of me is Japanese. My
All right.
father was stationed in
Okay.
Japan in 1970.
In
So-
Tachikawa.
Tachikawa, Tokyo,
All right.
is where I was born.
Was that Air Force?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an Air Force officer,
So you're
retired Air
born
Force
there
officer.
in the base, right?
Born
Tachikawa.
there. Yeah, that's right.
Air Force Base.
Yokota
yeah.
Air Base, I believe it
Yokota.
was.
Okay.
And so I was only there till I was 2 years old. So I have no memory other than what I've constructed from stories I've heard from my older sisters.
Okay. And where'd you go from there? Or where did your
New
father
Jersey.
go?
My dad got stationed in New Jersey, at McGuire Air
Okay.
Force Base, New Jersey. So I was there from 72 to 82 for like 10 years, which is a pretty long stretch for a military kid.
Right.
And then after New Jersey, 82 to 86 was Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, a real
Wow.
shit show. And then after,
Don't say that. Somebody's watching from Alabama,
well,
man.
good. Well, it's a shit show. Sorry, okay. I can't put
I
lipstick on
guess
that
you
pig.
didn't like it there. huh?
No, it was
Not
super
very much.
racist. It was the 80s, man.
Was it?
was. Oh yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Kind of like in the bones racism, where the people there aren't even really aware of it. But as a black kid coming from the Northeast, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, it's kind of racist.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. They had a black and a white homecoming queen at my
Wow.
junior high school. You know, they had separate homecoming courts, and it wasn't questioned. That's the part of it that's the most sort of diabolical.
It was
is to
like
say,
a accepted
this is how it
thing,
is.
right? Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna have one for you and have one for you, and it's like this
Wow.
doesn't. Is this right? Anyway, I was there till 86. Then North Carolina, my dad
So
got
86
stationed.
was what? Like when you graduated from junior high?
86 was me was between
High school, right?
10th and 11th grade.
Okay.
So between 10th and 11th grade, I moved to North Carolina. My folks split. I went up with my
Oh.
dad to North Carolina. I was there for 11th and 12th grade in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
How was that over there? Was
Not
that
bad. You know, Fayetteville's a very military community.
Okay.
It's where the largest Army post, Fort Bragg, is located.
Oh, really?
And there's also an Air Force base there, Pope Air Force Base, where my dad got stationed. So all my friends are military kids, and our school was kind of in an African-American part of town, middle-class African-American part of town. So I always like to say that my high school had an amazing mix of kids. And I mean, from my experience, there weren't a whole lot of cliques. I mean, I played soccer, so, you know, the soccer guys hung out together, but it really there wasn't separation.
So, and when did this acting thing come about?
It's kind of a layered answer. I would say that from the early 70s or from the mid 70s, I was always drawn to Robert De Niro.
Okay.
And Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And Meryl, like the first
Meryl Streep and
Meryl
like
Streep,
everybody else, yeah.
The first two movies that I felt, I don't, but at some point I want to learn.
We can't light it, right?
Oh, so I want me to let's just see what happens. Let's play.
Let's play. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, see?
All right, see?
And unavoidable to have that accent happen as soon as you put his name out. I was always drawn to those very kind of gritty, realistic performances of the 70s. Like when I saw The Godfather, without having full understanding, I was probably 7 or 8. And I just knew there's something going on here. There's something going on here that's serious and that is the people are serious. There's something in this. And I came from a serious family and I was just drawn to those guys. I was drawn to The Deer Hunter. I was drawn to The Godfather.
Deer Hunter, wow.
Like that movie might have been the seed that planted the seed. So that was always inside of me. You know, I was the kid in class that, you know, we did voices and, you know, I was personable and had friends and was watching Bugs Bunny with my sisters and imitating all those characters. And but I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer because I was black and my dad was a black military officer and that's what you do, right? Like
sounds like me.
Do something. I'm sure there's lots of similarities with immigrant families and black families like that. You know, like you're going to grow up and do something better and different,
especially
professional,
from the military,
respectable,
right? So
yeah.
I said, I grew up in the Navy base. Right. It was like yes sir, no sir.
Yeah.
You know, during my time, it was like you know. If you don't listen, it's like there was corporal punishment. Like
you get a backhand.
Belts.
Yeah, you get hit. Belts.
Yeah,
belts.
Exactly.
Were you hit belts?
Yeah.
I got belts.
Yeah. And the shoehorns.
The shoe itself.
The metal shoehorn.
Oh, no, I never got the shoehorn. We just got the belt. The shoe was tossed because any black woman worth her salt can throw a proper shoe, and he knows what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, but you know, honestly, like you describe that stuff now and it sounds draconian, but living through it, it was discipline.
It was.
And I didn't feel like I was abused. I think the behavior could have been abusive, right? But that's different than, you know, random drunk beating you with like that. It was like, you did this wrong and here's the corporal punishment. And while I don't think that I would want to do that, I still understand this was of a time.
Exactly.
This is of a time that they came from, and this, you know, so
it's funny because like you feel like, you know, forgive your dad or whatever, right? But at the same time, that's all he knew.
That's what he knew.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, I mean, I had a long conversation with him when I was 23, when I started out the acting thing. So just to kind of organize the time.
Yeah.
I went to college to major in business because I wanted to be a corporate lawyer with no knowledge of what that meant. I just knew that that's what Blair Underwood did on LA Law. It looked really sexy. Maybe one day I can look that good doing anything. And so I'm going to be a corporate lawyer. And so I started taking business classes, you know, microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistics, all this shit. And it was the second semester of my sophomore year where I just kind of came to this, it was like a closure of what I was studying where I just didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't like what I was doing. It was a statistics class I didn't like. I was kind of like, why am I doing this? And I went and saw a play called The Nutcracker at our school.
Tchaikovsky.
Yes. And it wasn't the ballet, it was the play.
All right.
So, you know, rudimentary breakdown of the Nutcracker, right? There's a fairy world and there's a real world. And I remember, you know, and I don't think I was the most attentive audience member at plays, but I remember the lights went out, meaning they were going into the fairy world now. And, you know, smoke started enveloping the stage. And then up from underneath the stage, this woman emerged as Mouse Rinks. And I remember her fingers like flitting around, and I was captivated. I was like, oh my God.
Wait, was this professional or
Yeah.
was it school play?
Yeah, it was professional. There's a regional theater in Chapel
I
Hill.
see. Okay.
Playmakers.
Okay. Wow.
And I just knew that I had to go to her, and that I could go to her. I don't know why, but it wasn't like it wasn't like attractive. Like it was more like something about her energy and essence. There's something that I got to go to her with. That's all I knew. And so I signed up for her class the next semester, but I didn't understand that it was a drama history class. I thought it was like drama class. So now I'm in this drama history class, and it's like a 400-person class where, you know, she teaches, then you go to these TAs. And
The classes are that big?
some of them at Chapel Hill. I mean, at any proper university, there's going to be like some classes that are that big, and then you go off into your 50-person TA smaller section.
Right, right.
And I wrote a paper. I did not get the grade that I thought I deserved. I was pretty good at writing papers. And she said, if you have a problem with your grade, you can come discuss it with me. So I went to discuss my grade with her. And my grade got elevated. And I was just kind of sitting in front of her very sheepishly trying to figure out, what do I do? What do I say? And, you know, and I said, you know, do you teach other acting classes? And she said, in the summer, we teach Drama 50, which is an intro to acting. And in that moment, I thought, okay, I'm going to change my major. I'm going to go to summer school for 2 semesters to keep up, because I had a 4-year academic scholarship. So my school was paid for as long as I got out in 4 years.
Right.
And I thought, I'm just going to go to summer school, and I'm going to take these classes, and I'm going to change my major to literature, and then I'm going to take her acting class, and that's what we're going to do.
That's a sophomore year, right?
That was sophomore year.
Yeah.
So between sophomore and junior year, I took Drama 50 with Susanna Reinhardt at Chapel Hill. And the second week of class, we had done some exercise. And, you know, in the second week, she approached me and said, do you want to be in the play we're doing? And honestly, the picture I had in my mind was that I'd be a guy walking in a pizza outfit, and I'd put a bag of food on the table and say, here's your food. And then I'd walk off. That's what I envisioned. I'm like, why would she be asking me to do a play? I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
And it turned out to be a play called The Women of Manhattan, a John Patrick Shanley play. And my scene was like this. If you would have heard of Shanley if you were doing theater in the 80s and 90s. I mean, he's still working, but it was like everybody was reading Shanley. And it's this 10-page first date seduction scene where I'm not first date, blind date with one of the main characters.
Okay.
And I remember going to the first read through, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, are we supposed to kiss? It says we kiss. What do you do if you're like, I had no idea, right? And so these other actors were, you know, the theater majors, and I assumed they knew what they were doing. They didn't know what they were doing. They were 20 years old too. But it's just interesting that you kind of imbue people with things when you're new to the circumstance. It's like, they must know what they're doing. So I ended up doing that play that summer, and the first night, the night we opened, I remember sitting on stage. Lights were down. I was at, you know, basically an Italian restaurant set up, you know, complete with the red and white checkered tablecloth. And as plain as day, the thought came to me, I'm moving to New York.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that's where De Niro and
You got the
Pacino
bug.
were.
Yeah.
And that's where you go. You go to New York to be an actor.
Right.
And so then I switched my major to English, so that I could, you know, I knew I could write papers and get good grades. Graduated on time and worked for a year in Raleigh. I knew I would need restaurant experience, so I found a job at Outback Steakhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Bussing tables, and then eventually waiting tables.
Australian.
And then, Australian for beer.
Yeah.
And then eventually being fired.
Mate.
But I got my experience in.
Yeah.
And while I was at Outback, before I got fired from Outback.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you
I was
do?
working 2 jobs. I was working at Outback, and I was working at a soccer shop as a manager.
Okay.
So I'd work at the soccer store till 4, then I'd go to Outback and work there till like 11. And I was late twice, which I think was my inner self saying, you got all you need here. This job sucks. You got the experience. So
you're in New York.
I haven't gotten to New
after
York
you
yet, but I
quit
want to be
Outback,
before I get fired,
Yeah.
I'd go and have a drink at night at the bar after the shift, and there was a guy there named Randy.
Randy, okay.
And Randy was from New York, and he and I got along because I grew up in New Jersey. There's like this immediate simpatico. I'm a Yankees fan. You're a Yankees fan. Talk about New Jersey. Da, da, da. And before I left, Randy said, hey, a buddy of mine works in a restaurant in New York. If you go up there, tell him you know me. Maybe they'll hire you.
Okay.
And I remember writing it on the back of a coaster. His friend Todd, Zip City Brewing Company. And I got to New York in September of 93.
93. Wow. Okay.
And like the second day, I went to Zip City Brewing Company and said, hey, is there a guy named Todd here? A friend of his named Randy sent me. And Todd was a kitchen manager, and he comes out and he's like, well, we're not really hiring right now, so sorry, no good. And I just decided right then, I'm like, I'm going to come here every Thursday until they hire me.
Wow.
I'm just coming in once a week until they hire me. Found a job at the Gap right around the corner.
Gap?
Yes. My first job in New York. I walked the streets for like 3 or 4 days with resumes, just like I'm going to Bed Bath & Beyond. I was just looking for anything, right? Like I was trying to find a job, going to restaurants. And there was something...
So you said, I know how to fold sweaters.
I can fold, and I can do the fold. I did do the fold.
Okay, good.
I'll never forget one day, there was a manager named Chemo, who was very...
Chemo?
Chemo. Like KMO, I think.
What nationality?
I don't know.
Chemo.
I mean, he just seemed like a white dude.
Okay.
But he's probably mixed.
They all look the same, right?
They all look... No, they do not all look the same, especially not to a military kid.
Okay.
It's one of the things growing up military, you notice the differences. And you can often say, oh, that person's mixed or that person's from there. And it didn't, honestly, did not matter to me growing up.
Sure.
I mean, I remember you'd be on the playground and some new kid runs along, like some Laotian kid or some kid named Dante, who's like some mix of 8 different things. You're like, whose team are you on? You're on this team. Let's play. Dante can either play kickball or he can't. Like, that's honestly how we looked at it. It really was how we looked at it.
It's so funny you mentioned that because in retrospect, when I just realized that's where I came from. Living in Navy base.
Yeah, that's
playing
exactly
baseball
right.
with all the guys,
Yeah. That's just how it is.
I never thought, twice about
you don't think about it.
or racial or anything
Yeah,
like
it's not that race doesn't exist or that you're ignoring it. It's just that when you meet on the pitch or on the field, that's how you meet people.
Yeah, whether he sucks or whatever.
That's how you gauge, right? Is she good at kickball or not? Men or women, right? I remember this little girl named Eileen who was short, like in 3rd or 4th grade. I don't know what she was. She was she could have been Middle Eastern, but Eileen could play kickball.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, we're picking teams, secret weapon. I'm picking Eileen. Like you didn't care. It didn't matter. Like they could either play or they couldn't. And
let's go back to Gap, will you?
Go back to the Gap. Go back to Fulton, brother.
Okay. So you're in New York.
I'm in New York.
So
I'm at the Gap.
You're working at Gap.
And I just and Zip City was around the corner. And every Thursday I just went in there. And it was about a month after I got there, mid-October. And in fact, it was late October because he said, you know what? Come back this Sunday. We might have something. All right. Came in Sunday with my blue shirt and my black jeans. And it was...
You mean Gap shirt?
What's that?
Gap shirt?
Was mine a Gap? It might have been. It was probably a Gap shirt. It was probably like a chambray Gap shirt. Like they gave me the Zip City shirt after I got trained, but the Zip City shirt was a blue button-up, so I'm sure it was a Gap shirt. Good call.
So wait. So you went to New York to be an actor.
Yes.
Right. So did you go to school there when you? I mean,
I
did
knew.
you go
I
find
knew nothing.
An agent, manager,
I
whatever?
knew none of this shit was in my lexicon.
Okay.
I knew nothing. All I knew was you go there and you find a class and you start acting. That's all I thought, which in a way was a blissful ignorance of 1993. There wasn't social media. There weren't 27 documentaries about acting. There wasn't 24-hour television, right? There was 24-hour television, but it was, CNN. They weren't talking about
TV,
So in a way, I was blissfully ignorant. And I didn't have a plan. I just thought, go up there and get a restaurant job.
Okay.
Because that's what actors do. They work in restaurants.
Okay.
And so I got a restaurant job. And very shortly thereafter, so anyway, I go in, he says, come back Sunday. I just think this is funny. I come back Sunday and it's Halloween.
Okay.
Now,
October,
this was a brew pub. So nobody's there because it's just nobody's trying to find a proper Märzen on Halloween in New York in 1993. They're all at the parade on 6th Avenue.
Okay.
Which is madness. The 6th Avenue Halloween parade in New York is something that I don't even think happens anymore, but it was why you are in New York in 93.
Okay.
It is just everything you can imagine in a New York parade is in that fucking parade.
Okay.
And that's on 6th Avenue. My restaurant is on 18th between 5th and 6th Avenue. So my restaurant's dead. It's like a tavern, like a pub, right?
Okay.
So fine, I meet this guy named Ray. He's like, just follow me, and here's the computer, here's the chicken salad, here's the beers. There are like 8 people in the freaking restaurant. It's awful, but fine. This is what you have to trail. Usually I had to trail 3 or 4 shifts.
Okay.
Trailing and training are the same thing for those that aren't restaurant literate.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing our thing, and it starts pouring outside, and I'm too inexperienced to do the math. But within 20 minutes, the restaurant is fully sat because everyone's coming from the parade.
Right.
And it's fully sat with the parade people. There are lots of feather boas. There's lots of glitter. And it's wild. And I remember walking around the corner.
This is your first day?
First day.
Right.
And I walked around the corner of the restaurant. I said, Joe, somewhere somebody has done something much fucking harder than this. Knuckle down, work as hard as you can, and don't stop moving. I just gave myself a pep talk. Like, you're going to get through this. And I went to the first table. It was like 8 or 9 drag queens.
Right.
And I said, listen, it's my first night. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to take care of all of you. And
You
this
said
one,
that?
yeah, I said, I'm just like, here's me, man. Here's my truth. This is what's going on. I'm just going to give you guys the lowdown. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm going to take care of you. And this one man or woman, I don't know for sure, and I don't want to say anything. I honestly don't know. And I say that with no disparagement. I still was like, oh, we like you already. And I'm like, I got you. And I bought them a bunch of beers, and I just kept hustling for 3 hours. And at the end of the night, there was a bartender, a guy named Todd Cosgrove, who's probably still out here somewhere. And this guy was straight out of Central Casting for New York bartender.
Oh, really?
Right? Kind of guy that has a cigar, has a newspaper that he calls a rag. And he never gives you, this is the guy that will never give approval to anything or anybody. And at the end of the night, I remember him, he was carrying a tray of beer steins, because this place had a bunch of German beers on tap. They were brewed on site. And he's comes around the corner, he looks at me and he says, first night? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, all right. And I remember, I'm in New York. I thought, I'm in New York.
Wow.
And they hired me, and I worked at that place for a couple years. And it was, that's all you want. You want a job that you go to 4 nights a week. You take home your $800. You're paying that much for rent back then. You're living in a hole with your friend. That's we lived in a railroad apartment that could have been more than 400 square feet.
How old were you then?
23.
Wow.
And we had bunk beds. Me and my buddy Robert, who I moved there with,
beds.
we had a bunk bed. We could not have been happier.
Oh, really?
We could not have been happier. We found a place on St. Mark's Place in the East Village. It didn't matter. You weren't in your apartment. You were home. You showered or you didn't, and then you were out till 4 in the freaking morning. That was New York in the 90s.
Right.
And the East Village and the West Village at the time were artists because you were paying $500-$600 a month for your rent. You were all struggling, a friend of mine named Banu, she danced for Merce Cunningham. My friend named Hillary was there to be an actress. My buddy Robert was trying to be a writer. And that was the fertility of that area at the time. That was the village. And I feel like the 90s was the last time it was like that. So I had my job. And then there were 4 people at that job that all had the same acting coach.
So you were going to the acting coach?
Well, I didn't even know yet. I was just working at the place, and this one guy, this bartender named Chris Murphy. So first, I started taking classes at a place called HB Studios, which is legendary, right? HB Studios in the West Village. You go to you get the Village Voice newspaper. You look for acting classes. Someone's teaching improv for $133 for 4 weeks. I'm like, all right, I can do this. So I started taking classes there because I didn't know any better, And look, man, the class is class.
Right.
And they had good teachers over at HB Studios. They were all proper people, especially in the 90s. They had all been teaching in this, they had all learned in the 60s and 70s from, the Meisners and the Adlers. And you're learning, it was kind of, it was a bit
It's funny because a couple of people that I actually been on this podcast, been to the HB.
Yeah. Uta Hagen was the name.
Uta Hagen, yeah.
So Uta Hagen had a class there that I never got into.
Acting for actors.
Acting. Yeah. Who else would you want acting for? Acting for plumbers. And so that was kind of my first foot into it. I would take this 4 or 6 week class on improv. And then in the spring, one of the bartenders was like, listen, if you want to learn acting, I got this guy. He's kind of gruff. He can be kind of tough, but he knows acting. And I remember he wrote down the phone number on a little piece of paper, Greg Zittel. And I called up Greg and I went and sat with him. And Greg had this little dingy space down in Little Italy. In some, it might as well have been a burnout building, but it wasn't. But it was like this little dingy room with carpet like this. Not that this is dingy, it's amazing. And he just have you come and sit with him. He didn't care about your resume, didn't care about your headshot. He just interview you. And he's like, well, why do you want to do this? And, you give your little fumbled answer of a 23-year-old. And then he'd say, come to class on Monday, be on time, pay your bills. And you would go to class twice a week, 10 o'clock Monday and Thursday.
What was it? What kind of acting class?
So he was a Meisner guy.
Okay.
But he wasn't teaching straight Meisner, but what he was teaching was a relative of Meisner's. So I'm telling you, man, for 2 months, you just sat across from somebody doing what was called the waiting game, which is similar to the repetition exercise.
Oh, shit.
So day one, you're just sitting across from somebody. He's like, don't say anything. Sitting across from somebody. And after like 15 minutes, he'd say, what's he doing? He's judging me. What's he doing? He's questioning me. All right, get the doing. And that's what class would be. And you'd after half an hour, sit down. And that's like 6 weeks.
Oh, shit.
But after a couple weeks, he'd say, okay, if you had to say something, what would you say? So every group of 2 men sitting across from each other after this month, what do you think they're going to say to each other the first time they get to use words?
What?
Fuck you.
That's what I thought.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And then Greg would say, all right, settle down. Stop. Stop.
No, but isn't it true? I mean, I've taken Meisner technique, whatever, right?
Yep.
I tend to find Meisner to be very depressing.
So here's what I thought was different with what he taught. He wasn't teaching Meisner. He was teaching you to see what the other person was doing.
Right.
Which is the heart of improvisation.
Right, exactly.
So that anytime you were listening and seeing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the words don't matter.
Exactly.
What they're doing matters.
Right.
And I thought it was actually, at the time, I didn't know what we were doing, right? It's like Karate Kid. I'm waxing off. Then I get in a fight 3 months later. At the time, I did not know that's where it was going. But after like 6 months of that, you realize that you know what they're doing and you know what everyone's doing. It's like Spidey sense, where words no longer have any meaning. It's all behavior and actions. And you kind of become a truth seer. Because Greg's biggest sentence was, what's the truth of the moment?
Right.
And the only way to find the truth of the moment is, like you said a minute ago, to listen and to see.
Right.
Because
was it like sense memory was one of the
no, he was not teaching. No, so right? there was something adjacent to that.
Right.
He would have you go off. So after we did that for a few months, and he'd start giving you a 1-page scene, he would say, "See what they're doing, then go to the line. See what they're doing, then go to the line." So that you weren't preparing a way to say a line. He would say, "What are they doing? Now go down. Where'd your mom go?" Right? There'd be a sentence, and then you'd imbue the sentence with what was going on. After that, he'd put you both in a closet, like these little separate closets, a little room off to the side.
Okay.
And he would tell you to try to see. Try to see. Is it seeing a conversation with your mother? Is it the time a kid pushed you down? Try to see something before you come in the room so that you're filled. All building blocks. So I feel like it was about 1.5 years into that. And we started doing some scene work. And it was always like the first time you got up, you forgot everything. But that training gave me, I thought, a great foundation of truth.
Right. I mean, it's funny because as an actor, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
We enjoy that, actually.
Yes.
And we can talk about this forever, right?
Yes.
But the people who doesn't, not into acting, they'll go, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, for the folks that aren't into acting, what if I was going to give like a 1-sentence exploration or 1-sentence explanation, I would say there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
And
many tools.
there are many tools. Yeah. And when you enter into the entertainment world, you're not entering into acting. Acting's one part of it. But in the entertainment world, entertainment is the largest part of it.
Right.
And when you first encounter that, it's disillusioning and it can be disappointing. But at some point, you have to recognize that you're going to be side by side with an influencer, side by side with a clown, side by side with a comic, side by side with a singer in the world of entertainment.
Yeah.
TV is not about truthfulness. TV is fantasy. TV is 5'3", 100-pound female cops beating up a big guy in an alley. Or TV is like a really sensitive, soulful doctor who has a wonderful 5 o'clock shadow and is typically white and 35, who has an amazing grasp of humanity and has not been jaded by his profession.
Right.
That's fantasy. That's what TV is.
That's what we got to play too.
And so we have to.
Yeah.
You are being hired for what part of the fantasy you fulfill. There's a reason that a lot of people that look like you are put in a certain kind of role.
Exactly.
Lots of doctors.
Typecasting, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's the fantasy. Stage is slightly different. They're both fantasies. They require different skill sets.
For us, I mean, we get to be that person for like an hour and a half.
And even
right,
that,
while you're on the stage,
kind of,
right?
Yeah, you kind of get to be that person.
Even the director is there on the rehearsal. When you get on the stage on the real, the show, you're the only one out there.
That's right. There's a linearity to it,
yeah, exactly,
right? Like there is a beginning, middle, and end every time you go out there. And for those that are unfamiliar with the goings on of television, and Sonny and I know this very well, you're lucky if what you're doing is in order.
Right.
You're lucky if what you're doing has an arc. And typically you're being brought in to be a day laborer.
Yeah.
Subcontracted for your ability to have relaxation, composure, and intelligence and professionalism. And so they want to populate the room with all of us very skilled craftspeople for their stars.
Yep.
And sometimes their stars are amazing and sometimes they're not.
Yeah, you said it.
Because stardom is not based on meritocracy. Stardom is this.
But what is though? There's nothing,
Oh no.
World,
Sports is based on meritocracy.
Right,
School is based on meritocracy. Being an engineer is based on meritocracy.
You know about the baseball, like the minor league. There's so many great players out there.
Yeah.
Right. But for some reason, some people
don't. But if you're
hitting
hitting 375 and you're 24 years old, you're going to get called up.
No matter what. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah,
so yes, there's always fortune plays a role in everything, but in sports, they can't afford to not bring you in if you're not good. There's still discrimination in the world, but if you're hitting 50, 40, 90 as a basketball player and you're scoring 27 points, you're going to get a shot.
Right.
Literally and figuratively. In acting, it is presented, you're welcome, as a meritocracy, but that's not true.
In acting, right.
Acting is presented as a meritocracy, and it's spoken of as a meritocracy, and it's not. It's not. I don't think that merit is removed from it. It's not absent, but it is not the driving factor.
But isn't it true that you have certain threshold that you have to go over? You have to have certain talent, right? But as long as you have, you're going to say,
that would require a definition of talent.
Exactly. Right. But at the same time, like, you have to be able to say the line. You have to, be able to hit the mark. Right.
Yes.
That's like a minimum requirement.
You have to be able to not bump into the furniture. What was it Spencer Tracy said? He said, say the lines and don't hit the furniture. Something like that. I think the greatest asset for a TV actor.
Yes.
Or a film actor. The greatest asset is confidence. That's the ball game. And charisma, which you have almost no control over.
Right.
Some people
are born with it?
Well, not only are they born with charisma, but some people look amazing on film and some don't.
Right.
Brad Pitt shows up on Thelma and Louise. He'd been around for years. He wasn't 26 years old. This guy was in his mid-30s.
Right.
He gets on screen with a 17-pack.
Right.
With a set of abs that still hasn't been replicated, and he brought it out again in Fight Club. Like, no one looks like Brad Pitt.
Right.
It's not even that he's the best-looking person in the world, but the camera loves Brad Pitt. Loves Brad Pitt.
Okay.
And he happens to have something going on underneath as well, right? Which he has developed. I don't think he was a great actor day one, but I think to his credit, I think he's become a better actor, and he's developed his confidence. Little Brad's like Brad Pitt somewhere saying, "Dude, don't speak my name. Get my name out of your mouth."
All right, so wait. So let's go back to you.
Yeah,
Not Brad
you don't
Pitt,
like my
you.
ramble?
No, so you working and start
I
going to this
start
acting
taking
class,
acting class.
and then
So one day my acting coach says to me, I was probably 3 years in with him. And I hadn't been out there. I wasn't even looking. I didn't know what agents were. I had one guy take interest in me as a manager who was probably just attracted to me, saw me at the restaurant through a friend of mine. He's like, "Oh, do you have anybody representing?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Oh." And so he started, sending me on stuff here and there.
how was it? How did it go? Oh,
Something like that.
Yeah.
His name was Paul. I won't say his last name. Lovely guy, though.
okay.
With a little rinky-dink management company that went nowhere. So he'd send me out on a thing or two. But what really kind of nothing broke me. My acting coach had a son, Greg is no longer with us. His son, I'm pretty sure, is still around, hopefully. He had a son named, doesn't matter. He had a son who was working on a soap,
Okay.
who was like 8 years old.
In New York.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was represented by Abrams Agency.
Okay.
And one day Greg said to me in his very Greg way, maybe they need a black guy. And I'm like, maybe they do. So he says, I'll take your headshot into them. And then Abrams commercial department called me in, and I went in and met with Abrams commercial department for commercials. I just said commercials.
Always,
booze.
Yeah. Always commercial first, right? With this agency.
It depends on who you are, man. It depends on who you are. If you came out of a grad school, maybe you're meeting the legit people first. I don't know. But I met with them, and they're like, "Hey, we love you." And then I didn't hear from them for a year. And but after a year, they called me in, and I started doing these industrial commercials. Everything in like 1995 or 97. Oh, thank you. Everything back then was Men in Black.
Oh, wow.
So all the industrial commercials wanted like a Will Smith kind of guy and a Tommy Jones kind of guy. And so I was always the Will Smith kind of guy in like some awful industrial about, pharmaceutical use or some shit. Where you stare into the camera and you act like you're a Men in Black guy, but you're talking about like, systems and IT and shit. Anyway, it made a little money.
Yeah.
I'm good. And so that kind of started happening a little bit here, a little bit there. I started getting little plays because like somebody would get my name from class. Like Greg would give my name to somebody who's doing
Equity play or
what's that?
Equity? Or no?
Sonny.
Off,
Sonny,
Broadway.
how cute.
No.
You couldn't see Broadway from where I was doing these plays in front of 12 people. But I'm telling you, I had no problem with it because I'm like, it's a play. I need to learn how to do this. I need to get good at this. And my first play was a play called Siberia. This woman named Jane had written it, and it was imperfect.
Okay.
As was I. But it was my first time getting on stage. And I played this kind of like half human, half spiritual savior of the universe in this world of women. But what I remember there are a couple of things I remember from that performance. I don't remember what I did at all.
Okay.
But there was this, I call her an older black woman backstage, but she was probably 38. There was this woman in the play that kind of had the world weariness of an actor who's seen this 1,000 times. She'd sit backstage knitting. She was never nervous. She was never worried. And I remember during one play that was going, pretty bad. I walked over to her, and I'm sure that I, vented something about the audience not being receptive or some stupid thing. And she was like, baby, sometimes you just got to drive to curtain. And that has stayed with me for 30 years. Really? Drive to curtain. Some nights you just got to get to the end. You just got to get to the end. And that's what stage is, right? Like you're going to have amazing nights where you're out of your skin, alive, effervescent in the moment.
Yeah.
And nights where you're like, fuck, is this over yet? That's that's the stamina of stage.
Yeah.
So I started doing little things here and there, got the commercial agent. And then eventually another manager that my acting coach introduced me to. So this was an agency It was called Berman, Bowles, and Flynn.
Never
Guy
heard of
named
it.
well, yes, you haven't.
Mm.
And there was a guy named one of the agents was a guy, and lovely people, and I'm grateful that they got me indoors starting out. Lovely guy named Jim Flynn, who my acting coach Greg dubbed Jim. I can't get you in, Flynn.
Mm.
That was his name. But they got me a Law and Order audition.
Oh yeah.
With Suzanne Ryan, who's still doing casting, fantastic casting director out of New York. And it was my.
Did you get it?
I did.
Oh wow.
I got in the audition.
First one?
Yep. I went in. I did my line as crime scene unit detective Richard Hardwick, also known as Dick Hardwick. No inside jokes there. And I remember I went in. I did my lines, and Suzanne said, "That's great. Just take it down a little bit."
Oh.
And I remember Greg always saying, "Take a breath." And I took a breath. And I did it again, and I took it down a little bit. And then I got cast as crime scene unit detective Richard Hardwick. And I did like 4 episodes over the years. It's like, he's the guy in the teaser that's leading in Jesse Martin and Jerry Orbach, who's like, they found the shooter over here, and this is, and they're like, sounds like he had a rough day, rough night, hard. You know, like they'd make some, and I'm like, yeah, and then he came over here. And that was my first real TV job.
Okay.
And I showed up and I met Jesse and Jerry, who could not have been lovelier. Real professionals, man. Real pros. They knew where I was. I knew where I wasn't trying to impose. At one point, we were sitting in a room and I was like, if anybody wants to go over it, I'm happy to. If not, you know, like they are the big dogs in the room, right?
Sure.
Like know your place, but also have your self-respect for being there. And they're like, yeah, let's read through it a couple times. And they were lovely. And I remember that guy Michael Gross was in this episode from Family Ties, who was the dad in Family Ties,
Right.
that I'd watched growing
God,
up.
how many years ago was that? That's like
86?
Wow.
About 30 years ago?
Oh. Yeah.
About 40 years ago?
40.
Oh my God.
No,
Yeah, Family
96
Ties
you
was
mean.
like...
90. I mean,
No,
the
Family Ties was in the
Family
mid-'80s.
Ties, yeah, exactly.
This was in like 99.
Michael J. Fox, right?
Michael J.
Family
Fox.
Ties,
Justine Bateman.
Justin Bateman, yeah.
Tina Yothers
I don't know.
was the daughter.
Okay.
And Meredith Baxter was the mom.
Mom, yeah.
Michael Gross was the dad.
I was in college then. Yeah.
You were in college and I was like in a 10th grade, maybe?
Okay.
What are you, 60?
Mm-hmm.
Ish. 74. Suck it up, big man. But I remember that when they said action, my heart must have gone to 200 beats a minute.
The first time.
First time.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I just said, breathe and relax. I was prepared. And I remember thinking, they're going to see my heart. Which, of course, they can't see because it's not going 200. And after the first time through, it was fine. After the second time through, it was fine. And then I never had a problem. And I stayed relaxed. And that was my first episode of television.
Wow.
And that kind of, so now you're off and running.
Right.
You know, I was starting to get some commercials. I got this big ESPN commercial like in 99, right around the same time. ESPN, the magazine that was running all the time, gave me some money. And I was waiting tables. And, you know, I just kind of started piecing things together after that.
So when did you end up coming over here?
So
or what made you come out here?
I will tell you exactly what made me come out here.
Yes.
As a person who has a strong scarcity mindset, I'm always watching others, which is a terrible habit, but I'm guilty of it. And I went to an audition. So I started getting some work. I was getting some commercials. Like I was kind of booking as a commercial guy. I was making some money as commercials, and I was getting my Law and Order here and there. And I was doing my As the World Turns on occasion. All My Children, like the detective guy. I was starting to get a little bit of work.
Right.
I was paying my bills as an actor. And they were doing a soldiers play in New York, off Broadway.
Okay.
If there was ever a play that I should be seen for, it's this play full of military black men that are in their 20s and 30s.
Oh, shit.
So I'm telling my agent, different agent now, like, get me in, get me in, get me in, just get me in. Just get me in the room for this play. I think Taye Diggs was the lead. And
what was that show with Denzel Washington?
He did the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Soldier's Story.
That's it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right,
I
cool.
mean, and then he had done the play when I think the Harlem Theater had done it back in the day, and he was in. I think Samuel Jackson was in it. like back in the either late 70s, early 90s, Theater of Harlem had done a soldier's play. And I'd obviously seen the movie.
So the title is The Soldiers?
The play is Soldier's Play.
Soldier's Play.
The movie with Howard Rollins and Denzel and Adolph Caesar was Soldier's Story.
Okay, yeah.
Soldier's Story.
Okay.
And so I had not gotten an audition, and I was at a commercial audition next to a buddy of mine named Albert, who's a very good actor. And in a rare moment of magnanimity, in a rare moment of trying to give to the world instead of taking.
Okay. Let's
I
be
said,
dramatic
hey, man.
here. Okay, please.
Make sure you get in for Soldier's Play. Like, I think you'd be right for the part.
Oh, wow.
And Albert's like, oh, yeah, I went in 2 weeks ago. And my body got hot. My body got hot. And I remember thinking, okay, man, you're in New York. At the time, there were like maybe 12 shows in New York. There weren't many. And it's like, you've already been on 3 or 4 of these shows in New York. So you're not here for television. Because most of the television that you could do here, you've already done.
Right.
If you're not here for television, then you're here for theater. And if you can't get auditions for any of the good theater, what the fuck are you doing in New York? In that moment, I said, I gotta go to LA.